The living room buzzed with Sunday afternoon chatter. The smell of pot roast and cleaning spray hung in the air. I reached for my purse, car keys jingling in my sweaty palm. My goal was simple: leave before his mother started her usual complaints about me. His hand cracked across my cheek. The keys flew from my grip and slid under the couch. "Hand them over," Hank said, his voice deadly quiet. "That car belongs to this family." The room went silent. Every eye turned to me. My face burned where his wedding ring had caught my skin. I could taste blood from my split lip. The metallic taste mixed with the lingering flavor of Sunday dinner, making my stomach turn. I bent down to pick up the keys, my hands shaking. "Not today," I whispered. His brother Kieran stepped in front of the door, arms crossed. His mother Catherine smiled from her chair like nothing had happened. My teenage son Louis stared from the hallway, his mouth hanging open, his homework forgotten in his trembling hands. The keys felt heavy in my palm, heavier than they'd ever felt before. I straightened up and looked Hank in the eye. Something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to hand them over. Not today. Not ever again. In the hallway, the cold tile bit through my thin slippers. My cheek throbbed where he'd hit me. I needed fresh air without letting them see my tears. The family photos on the wall seemed to mock me. All those fake smiles hiding years of control and manipulation. "You embarrass this family every time you leave," Catherine hissed behind me. "A wife should know her place." Louis was still staring. My poor boy had never seen his father hit me before. I'd always been careful to hide the bruises, the harsh words, the way Hank controlled every dollar we spent. His innocent eyes were now filled with a knowledge no child should have. I straightened my shoulders and tasted iron on my tongue. The words came out before I could stop them. My husband slapped me in the face and demanded my car keys. I said it loud enough for everyone to hear. Catherine gasped. Kieran shifted uncomfortably by the door. Hank's face turned red with anger, veins bulging in his neck like ropes under strain. "Don't be dramatic," he snapped. "You walked into my hand." But Louis wasn't buying it. Neither was I. For the first time in 15 years of marriage, I decided I was done being quiet. Done pretending everything was fine. Done letting them treat me like I owned nothing, not even the car I'd paid for with my own money. Back in our dim bedroom, I pulled open the bottom drawer of my dresser. The old fan wobbled on the ceiling, making shadows dance on the walls. I found what I was looking for: the car payment booklet. The leather cover was worn from my frequent handling, a testament to my careful tracking of every payment. My fingers traced over the payment stamps, every single one marked paid in my handwriting. Every installment covered by my part-time job at the grocery store, while Hank spent his money on fishing trips with Kieran. The ink had faded on some of the older receipts, but the proof was undeniable. I remembered the day Catherine first called my Honda community property. I'd laughed it off then, trying to keep peace. But tonight, looking at those payment receipts, I understood what she'd really meant. They thought they could take it from me. The car was the only thing in my name, the only thing I'd bought myself. The house belonged to Hank. The bank accounts were joint, but he controlled them. Even my phone was on his family plan, another invisible chain binding me to his will. But that car was mine. I'd worked double shifts to make those payments. I'd skipped lunches and bought generic groceries to afford the insurance. Every scratch on the bumper, every mile on the odometer, it was all mine. I closed the booklet and made a decision. They weren't getting my car. In the kitchen, I held a bag of frozen peas against my swollen cheek. The overhead light flickered like it always did. I needed to document the mark he'd left. The peas were already starting to thaw against my heated skin, cold water dripping down my neck and soaking into my collar. Hank leaned against the doorframe, his voice sweet as honey. "Baby, you know you walked right into me. Don't make this into something it's not." I pulled out my phone and snapped a selfie. The timestamp showed 3:47 p.m., Sunday, October 15th. The bruise was already turning purple, spreading across my cheekbone like spilled ink on paper. "What are you doing?" His fake smile twitched. "Taking a picture." I showed him the screen. "For my records." His smile disappeared completely. "Delete that." "No." I saved the photo and backed it up to the cloud. "This stays." The upload bar filled slowly, each percentage point a small victory against his control. He took a step toward me, but I held up the phone again. Go ahead, give me another one to photograph. He stopped. For the first time in years, Hank actually stopped when I told him to. Maybe it was the phone camera. Maybe it was the look in my eyes. But something had changed between us in that moment. I lowered the frozen peas and looked at my reflection in the phone screen. The woman staring back looked tired but determined. She looked ready to fight. At the dining table with my morning coffee, I logged into our joint bank account on my laptop. The coffee tasted bitter, but I needed the caffeine to focus on what I was seeing. Steam rose from my mug, fogging the screen slightly as I scrolled through transaction after transaction. A new transaction caught my eye. Auto repair deposit, $2,500, posted yesterday by Kieran. The description said title hold service. My heart started pounding. I scrolled through more recent transactions. There it was. Hank had withdrawn cash at midnight last Tuesday. The same night my car had been borrowed without asking. The pattern was becoming clear, each transaction a breadcrumb in their trail of deception. I clicked through to the bank's memo section. Kieran had written collateral for M. Sullivan vehicle in the notes field. They were planning something with my car, and they'd already put money down. I printed every page of the bank statement. The printer hummed quietly in the corner while I created a new folder on my computer. I named it Evidence. This wasn't just about a slap anymore. This was about theft. They were trying to steal my car using our joint account money that came from both our paychecks, including mine. I saved the file and looked around the empty kitchen. Hank had already left for work. Catherine and Kieran would be over later for dinner, like they were every Monday. But this time, I'd be ready for them. In the driveway at dawn, dew covered my silver Honda like tiny diamonds. The neighborhood was quiet except for Mrs. Chen's dog barking next door. I had my phone out, checking the GPS tracker app I'd secretly installed last month. The cool morning air felt fresh against my bruised face, a sharp contrast to the stuffiness inside the house. The red dots on the map told a story. Late-night trips to a car lot behind Kieran's mechanic shop, multiple visits to the DMV, a stop at Catherine's lawyer's office just 3 days ago. I took screenshots of every location, every timestamp. They thought I was stupid, that I wouldn't notice the extra miles on my odometer or the way my seat had been moved. The evidence painted a clear picture of their conspiracy, each dot on the map, another nail in their coffin. My phone buzzed with a text from Hank. Better have my breakfast ready when I get home. Don't test me today. I smiled at the screen, then at the GPS evidence in my phone. Don't test me either, I whispered. The morning sun felt warm on my face as I walked back to the house. For the first time in months, I felt like I had some control. They were planning something, but now I knew about it. Knowledge was power, and I was just getting started collecting both. At my desk at work, the air conditioning hummed while I opened my email. A message from an unknown address had the subject line, FYI, document for review. My coworkers chatted quietly around me, their normal Monday morning conversations, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in my personal life. The attached PDF made my blood run cold. It was a friendly family loan agreement, with my signature promising my car as collateral for a $5,000 loan to Hank's business. Except I'd never signed any such document. I held my breath and compared the signature to my real one from my work ID badge. The A in Amanda was completely wrong, too loopy, like Catherine's handwriting from the birthday cards she sent. The forgery was obvious once you knew what to look for, but convincing enough to fool a casual observer. My hands shook as I forwarded the document to my personal email. This was forgery. Fraud. They were trying to legally steal my car, using a fake signature. The anonymous email had come from a public library computer, according to the header information. Someone was trying to warn me, and I had a good idea who. Mrs. Chen had always been kind to me. She'd seen Catherine and Kieran over at our house late at night, heard them talking by my car. Maybe she'd overheard more than I realized. I printed the document and added it to my growing evidence file. Two could play this game. In the laundry room that evening, steam fogged the small window as the washer churned. I'd left my phone recording on the shelf above the detergent, hidden behind a box of fabric softener. The familiar domestic sounds, washing machine, distant television, refrigerator humming, provided perfect cover for my surveillance operation. Hank was on the phone with Kieran in the kitchen, his voice carrying through the thin walls. "We sell the car Friday morning. She'll cry and make a scene, but she'll get over it." Kieran's laugh crackled through the speaker. "Mom says keep her broke so she can't fight back. Take away her independence." "Already working on that," Hank replied. "Cut her hours at the store last week. Told her boss she wasn't reliable." My knees went weak. He'd sabotaged my job. No wonder my manager had been treating me differently, giving me fewer shifts. Hank had poisoned the well before I even knew there was a problem. The betrayal cut deeper than the physical slap had, reaching into every aspect of my carefully constructed independence. I stopped the recording and saved it with the file named Confession 1. Their own voices would be their downfall. The washer finished its cycle with a loud buzz. I pulled out Hank's work shirts and smiled grimly. Let's see how he liked being blindsided. After church on Sunday, I lingered on the front steps. Mrs. Chen approached me with a gentle smile, her purse clutched tightly in her weathered hands. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and the distant aroma of someone's Sunday roast. Other parishioners filed past us, chatting about sermon topics and weekly plans, oblivious to the drama unfolding in my life. "Amanda, dear," she whispered, "I hope you don't mind me asking, but I heard raised voices last week, and I saw your car being moved at odd hours." I touched my cheek where the bruise had faded to yellow-green. "Did you hear anything specific?" She nodded, her eyes kind but worried. "Your name, the word title, and something about Friday morning. Kieran was arguing with Catherine about paperwork." Her voice dropped even lower, barely audible above the church bells chiming in the distance. My heart raced. "Would you be willing to write down what you heard?" "Of course." She pulled out a small notepad from her purse. "I've been keeping track since last month. Something didn't feel right." She handed me a page of neat handwriting detailing dates, times, and conversations. Her kitchen window faced our driveway, and she'd apparently seen everything. "If you need a witness," she said softly, "I'm here." I squeezed her hand gratefully. "Thank you. You might have just saved me." She patted my shoulder. Nobody should have to face bullies alone, especially not family bullies. That night in the kitchen, I opened the microwave and placed a manila folder inside. It had become my secret safe. Nobody ever checked the broken microwave for important documents. The appliance had been dead for months, its digital display dark and lifeless, making it the perfect hiding spot for my growing collection of evidence. The folder was getting thick. The bruise photo with its timestamp, the bank statements showing suspicious transactions, the GPS evidence of unauthorized car use, the forged loan document, Mrs. Chen's detailed witness statement. I closed the microwave door and stuck an out-of-order note over the window. Hank had been meaning to replace it for 2 years, but now I was grateful for his procrastination. His laziness had inadvertently provided me with the perfect vault for my case against him. My phone buzzed with a text from Louis. "Mom, are you okay?" "Dad seems angry all the time now." I texted back, "I'm handling it. Don't worry about grown-up problems." But inside, I was worried about him seeing all this drama. He was 17, almost an adult himself. He deserved to know the truth about what kind of man his father really was. I added his text to a new folder on my phone, Louis's concerns. If this went to court, I wanted to show how the family's stress was affecting our son. In my car the next morning, I carefully mounted a tiny dashboard camera I'd bought with cash. The Pine air freshener swayed as I adjusted the angle to capture both the ignition and glove compartment. I tucked a spare key inside an envelope marked insurance information and locked it in the glove box. If they managed to take my main keys, I'd still have a way to start my own car. Before heading to work, I sent Hank a text. "Working late tonight? Don't wait up." His response came immediately. "Fine. Leave your keys on the kitchen counter when you get home." I stared at the message. He was still trying to control my movements, even after everything that had happened. The dashcam would record anyone who tried to steal my car while I was gone. At work, I researched car theft laws on my lunch break. Taking someone else's vehicle without permission was a felony, even between married couples when the title was in one person's name only. I screenshot the legal statutes and added them to my evidence collection. Knowledge was becoming my weapon, and I was getting good at using it. That evening, I set a trap. I left my purse on the bed and headed to the bathroom, leaving the door slightly open. My backup phone was hidden under a towel, recording everything. Through the crack in the door, I watched Catherine rifle through my belongings. She pulled out my wallet, my checkbook, my small address book where I kept important numbers. Where did she put the title? Catherine muttered, tossing my things around carelessly. Hank appeared in the doorway. Find anything? She's hiding it somewhere. This woman is smarter than she looks. I smiled from behind the bathroom door. They had no idea how smart I actually was, or how much evidence I'd already gathered against them. When I emerged from the bathroom in my robe, they were both sitting innocently on the couch watching TV. My purse was back on the bed, but everything inside had been moved. How was your shower, honey? Hank asked, not looking up from the screen. Refreshing, I replied. Very refreshing indeed. The recording on my backup phone had captured everything perfectly. At the bank the next morning, I sat across from a loan officer whose tie had a small coffee stain. The building smelled like cleaning supplies and fresh paper. I need to report suspected fraud on my account, I said, sliding the forged loan document across his desk. This signature isn't mine, but it's being used to claim my vehicle as collateral. His eyes widened as he compared my real signature on the bank forms to the fake one on the loan document. The loop in your A is completely different. This is definitely forged. I'd like to freeze the joint account until this is investigated, I continued. And I need documentation that the car title is in my name only. He typed rapidly into his computer. I'm flagging this for the fraud department immediately. They'll contact law enforcement if necessary. 20 minutes later, I walked out with official bank statements, a fraud report number, and a letter confirming my sole ownership of the Honda. The joint account was frozen pending investigation. Hank's credit cards would stop working by evening. Let's see how he liked being financially controlled for once. The legal aid office smelled like old books and coffee. The lawyer, Miss Murphy, listened carefully as I played the recording of Hank and Kieran planning to sell my car. This is conspiracy to commit theft, she said, making notes on a yellow pad. Combined with the domestic violence and the forged documents, we have grounds for both criminal charges and a protective order. She stapled copies of all my evidence into a thick file. We'll file for emergency protection and temporary exclusive control of the vehicle today. If they attempt to move or sell the car, police will intercept. I signed the papers with a steady hand. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I had real power backing me up. The judge will likely grant this immediately, Miss Murphy continued. Bring your son to stay with a friend tonight, just in case. And Amanda, you're braver than you know. Walking out of that office, I felt 10 feet tall. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a woman fighting back with the law on my side. Back home, I started cooking dinner with a plan. The kitchen filled with the scent of garlic and spices as I prepared Catherine's favorite meal, my grandmother's chicken recipe. I sent a group text to Hank, Catherine, and Kieran. Let's discuss this like adults. Family dinner Friday at 6. We need to clear the air. Catherine's response came first, prayer hands emoji, and finally showing some sense. Kieran texted back, thumbs up and about time. Hank just sent, good, you're learning. My lawyer had texted me too. Officer Stewart will be positioned nearby. Stay calm and let them hang themselves. I stirred the sauce and smiled. They thought I was surrendering, admitting defeat. They had no idea I was setting the stage for their downfall. Louis came into the kitchen. Mom, what's really going on? Justice, I said simply. Friday night, you'll understand everything. Thursday evening, I watched from behind the living room curtain as Hank crept out to my car. The porch light cast long shadows across the driveway. The dash cam would record everything as he rifled through the glove compartment and found the envelope marked insurance information. I'd replaced the real spare key with a fake one and put a decoy title inside, stamped void, in faint letters he wouldn't notice in the dark. Through the window, I saw him grin as he pulled out the fake documents. He jogged across the yard to Catherine's house, probably thinking he'd found the real title. My phone buzzed with a text from Kieran. Got it. Friday morning we're golden. I texted back from Hank's phone. Perfect. She'll never know what hit her. Let them think they'd outsmarted me. Tomorrow night, they'd learn the truth. The real title was locked safely in my lawyer's office, along with copies of everything else. I went to bed that night, sleeping better than I had in months. Friday morning at the DMV, I slid the emergency protective order across the counter to a bored-looking clerk. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead while she stamped official forms. This gives you exclusive control of the vehicle pending the court case, she explained. Any liens or transfers attempted without your permission are void. She printed a fresh title with enhanced security features. The gold seal caught the light as she handed it over. This supersedes any other paperwork they might have. I tucked the new title into my purse next to my phone, which was recording everything. What happens if they try to sell it anyway? They'll be arrested for auto theft, she said matter-of-factly. The system is flagged. Any dealer who runs the VIN will see it's stolen property. Walking back to my car, I felt completely in control for the first time in my marriage. Tonight's dinner would be very interesting indeed. That afternoon, Louis found me in his old bedroom, folding his clothes into a suitcase. He was spending the night at his friend's house. I didn't want him caught in the middle of what was coming. "Mom, why did Dad really hit you?" he asked quietly, his voice cracking slightly. I sat on his bed and showed him the bank statements. Adults sometimes make terrible choices when they think nobody's watching. Your father and his family tried to steal my car. Louis's eyes grew wide as I explained about the forged signatures, the secret meetings, the plan to sell my vehicle without permission. That's actually stealing, he said. Yes, it is. And it's against the law. He hugged me tight. I'm proud of you for fighting back. Dad always said you were weak, but you're not. You're the strongest person I know. My heart broke and healed at the same time. I'll pick you up tomorrow morning, okay? This will all be over by then. As I drove him to his friend's house, I promised myself that he'd never have to choose between his parents again. Friday evening, I set the dining room table with our best china. Candles flickered between serving dishes of Catherine's favorite foods. The whole house smelled like home and comfort, masking the storm that was coming. Hank arrived first, kissing my cheek like nothing had ever happened. "This looks wonderful, honey. I'm glad you're being reasonable." Catherine and Kieran came in together, bringing flowers and wine. They were all smiles and compliments, acting like we were one big happy family again. I placed a manila folder beside the serving spoons, casual as you please. Nobody noticed it at first. They were too busy congratulating themselves on my apparent surrender. The back door clicked softly. Officer Stewart was in position in the kitchen, just as planned. "Shall we eat?" I asked sweetly, gesturing for everyone to sit. Catherine took her usual spot at the head of the table. Hank sat to my right, Kieran across from him. The trap was set, dinner was served. We ate in relative quiet for the first few minutes. The food was delicious. I'd outdone myself. Catherine praised the seasoning, while Kieran complimented the wine selection. "You see?" Catherine said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "When a wife submits to her family's wisdom, peace returns to the home." I nodded and opened the brown folder. Speaking of wisdom, I wanted to share something with everyone. I placed the time-stamped photo of my bruised face next to the breadbasket. "This is from Sunday afternoon," I said calmly. Louis's empty chair seemed to stare at Hank accusingly. Catherine's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Kieran shifted uncomfortably. "Now, Amanda," Hank started, but I held up my hand. "Let me finish." I pulled out my phone and pressed play on the laundry room recording. His own voice filled the dining room. "We sell the car Friday morning. She'll cry and make a scene, but she'll get over it." Kieran's voice followed. "Mom says keep her broke so she can't fight back." The color drained from Catherine's face. Hank's confident smile crumbled like old paint. I let the recording play out completely, including the part where Hank admitted to sabotaging my job. When it finished, the silence in the room was deafening. You can't." Catherine sputtered. "I can, and I did." From the folder, I pulled out the forged loan document and placed it next to my real signature on a bank form. "This signature loop is yours, Catherine. Very sloppy forgery work." Her face went white. Kieran started to stand up, but I wasn't finished. Here's the bank statement showing Kieran's title hold deposit using our joint account. I slid the papers across the table like playing cards. And here's the letter freezing that account pending fraud investigation. Someone swore under their breath. Chairs scraped against the hardwood floor as the family unity crumbled in real time. That's when Miss Murphy stepped out of the kitchen with Officer Stewart right behind her. The house seemed to exhale as the legal cavalry arrived. "Good evening," the officer said politely. "I believe we have some documents to discuss." I stood up slowly, savoring this moment I'd planned so carefully. From my purse, I pulled out the fresh title with its official gold seal. This document says the car, and all decisions about it, belong to me alone. I placed it in the center of the table where everyone could see it clearly. Catherine grabbed for it, but Officer Stewart stepped forward. "Ma'am, don't touch the evidence." "Evidence?" Hank stood up fast, his chair tipping backward. "What evidence? This is just family drama." Miss Murphy opened her briefcase and pulled out the protective order. "Hank Sullivan, you're being served with emergency protection orders. You need to step outside with the officer now." "You can't do this," he shouted, looking around the table for support. "She's my wife. That's my house. My family." Lewis's voice came from the kitchen doorway. "Don't touch my mother again." I hadn't heard him come in, but there he stood, 17 years old and fierce as a lion protecting his pride. Officer Stewart escorted Hank to the front porch while neighbors' porch lights flickered on like curious eyes. Miss Murphy stayed inside to explain the legal proceedings to Catherine and Kieran. "The forged signature constitutes fraud," she said calmly. "The conspiracy to sell stolen property is a felony, and the domestic violence is documented with photographic evidence." Through the window, I could see Hank gesturing wildly on the porch while Officer Stewart read him the terms of the protective order. Neighbors were definitely watching now, phones held up like tiny cameras. Mrs. Chen appeared at her fence, calling out loudly, "Is that the man who said the car belonged to his family?" Catherine hissed something about family business, but Mrs. Chen wasn't having it. "Family doesn't forge signatures," she announced to the gathering crowd. Kieran tried to slip out the back door, but found his path blocked by another officer who'd been waiting in the alley. Apparently, Ms. Murphy had been thorough in her preparations. The house felt lighter somehow, as if a heavy blanket had been lifted off all of us. Officer Stewart brought Hank back inside to collect his belongings from my car under official supervision. The trunk was full of fishing gear and tools he'd been storing there without permission. "This is ridiculous," Hank muttered, but his voice had lost its commanding edge. "Over a stupid car." "It's not about the car," I said quietly. "It's about respect. It's about honesty. It's about treating family like family instead of like property." Catherine gathered her purse and jacket, her usual confidence completely deflated. "This isn't over," she threatened, but it sounded hollow. "Actually, it is," Ms. Murphy replied, handing her a business card. "My client has extensive documentation of fraud and conspiracy. I suggest you hire a lawyer." As they filed out of my house, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders that I'd been carrying for 15 years. Lewis helped me clear the dinner table while Officer Stewart finished the paperwork. The candles had burned down to stubs, but the light felt brighter somehow. A week later, I sat in my car in the school pickup line, morning sun streaming through the windshield. Lewis buckled his seatbelt and grinned at me. "Ready for another day?" I asked. "Ready for anything," he replied. The protective order was holding strong. Hank had moved in with Catherine temporarily, and my lawyer said the fraud case was building momentum. I'd gotten my full hours back at work after explaining to my manager what had really happened. The house felt peaceful now. No more walking on eggshells, no more hiding money or evidence or bruises. Just me and Lewis, building a new life on honest ground. Sometimes I still heard that slap echoing in my memory, but now it sounded different. Like a door slamming shut on one chapter of my life and opening another. If anyone reading this has ever been cornered by people who claim to love you while trying to control you, hear me clearly. Document everything. Find your allies and take back what's yours. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply refuse to hand over your keys.